I was folding laundry when I heard the soft rustle of paper being pushed through the mail slot. I didn't think much of it at first. Most days it's just junk mail or HOA flyers about community barbecues I'm never invited to. But that day, there was only one envelope, white, official looking, and stamped with that red HOA logo like a bloodstain. I opened it, and the words hit me like a slap. Notice of violation, unauthorized pet, immediate action required. I blinked, read it again, and again. They were telling me I had 7 days to remove my dog from the property or face daily fines. My dog. Bo. My little Shih Tzu therapy dog who's been with me since my husband passed away 3 years ago. I sat down, heart pounding. This had to be a mistake. Bo was quiet, friendly, barely even barked. He didn't dig, didn't mess up the yard. Honestly, the worst he did was try to make friends with the squirrels. Why now? Why this? Later that afternoon, I walked Bo around the neighborhood like I always did. But this time, something was different. People I'd known for years avoided eye contact. One woman, Karen from 2 doors down, ironically, crossed the street when she saw me. A man trimming his hedge gave me a fake smile, the kind that says, "I know something you don't." That night, I reread the HOA regulations. Nowhere did it say dogs were banned. In fact, there was a section that explicitly allowed pets under 25 pounds. Bo was 13.5 pounds the last time we visited the vet. I photocopied the pages, highlighted the lines, and marched down to the HOA office the next day. The receptionist gave me a tight smile. "You'll have to speak with Mr. Donnelly." Of course. Mr. Donnelly, the HOA president, who once told me he didn't like animals because they bring fleas and lawsuits. He barely looked up from his computer. "It's not about the dog, Mrs. Karen," he said, his voice oozing condescension. "It's about complaints. Multiple neighbors say your dog barks aggressively and scares their children." I laughed. "Are you serious?" Bo has never barked at anyone unless they stepped on his tail. He leaned back, shrugged. "We take complaints seriously." I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood there in silence, staring him down. I could feel the weight of something deeper pressing in, not just about Bo, but about me. The old widow. The one who didn't go to wine nights. The one who still hung her late husband's flag on the porch. I didn't fit their mold. When I left that office, something shifted inside me. I wasn't just angry. I was awake. They thought they could push me out quietly. They had no idea who they were dealing with. After that meeting, I didn't sleep much. I kept replaying Mr. Donnelly's smug expression in my mind, like he already knew I'd lose. Like it was just a matter of time before I packed up and left like so many others before me. But I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. The next morning, I made coffee and stood at my front window with Bo curled at my feet. Across the street, I saw Linda Alvarez walking her golden retriever off-leash, as usual. 2 houses down, Bob Mitchell's massive Rottweiler barked at the mailman through a half-broken fence. And at the corner lot, the Darlings had just built a huge dog run in their backyard, without any visible HOA approval notice. So why me? I started documenting everything. Every dog I saw. Every barking incident. Every violation the HOA seemed to ignore. I kept a notebook in my purse, another by my nightstand. And I wasn't subtle about it either. I wanted them to see me taking notes. Then one morning, as I walked past the park, I spotted something, Mr. Donnelly himself, holding a leash. A fat orange tabby cat waddled beside him. He was talking to another neighbor, joking and laughing, while his cat wore a tiny pink vest with glittery letters that read, "Service Animal." Oh, the irony. I snapped a photo. Then another. And I smiled for the first time in days. Later that week, I attended the monthly HOA meeting. I hadn't been to one in over a year. The moment I walked into the room, everything went silent. Mr. Donnelly paused mid-sentence. "Well, look who's decided to join us." I didn't rise to the bait. I sat in the front row, opened my folder, and waited. Halfway through the meeting, I raised my hand. I have a few questions regarding selective enforcement of pet regulations. The room tensed. I started reading names, dates, details. I showed photos. Quoted their own bylaws. I brought up Mr. Donnelly's glitter-vested cat. The silence turned into whispers. Nervous shifting. A few suppressed laughs. Mr. Donnelly flushed deep red. "We'll review this in private session," he muttered. "No," I said calmly. "Let's do it now. In front of everyone." They ended the meeting early. That night, my mailbox was stuffed with HOA newsletters, half of them torn. A note was taped to my door. "Some people don't belong here." I left it up for everyone to see. Because the truth is, they weren't just trying to get rid of a dog. They were trying to erase anyone who didn't fall in line. And I was done playing nice. I didn't plan to become a neighborhood detective. I just wanted to keep my dog. But once you see the cracks in the perfect white fence, you can't unsee them. And when you start pulling threads, the whole thing begins to unravel. It started with a woman named Janice. She used to live on Cedar Lane, in the yellow house with the hydrangeas. Quiet, kind, always brought cookies to community meetings. One day, she just disappeared. Rumors said she moved to Florida, but I always thought it was strange. She loved this neighborhood. So I reached out. Tracked down her daughter on Facebook. Turns out Janice didn't move willingly. She'd been forced to sell after repeated fines from the HOA, fines that escalated over months for trivial things: unapproved mailbox paint, grass half an inch too long, and finally, unauthorized outdoor sculpture. The sculpture? A birdbath her late husband built. The pattern was clear. I found others, too. A retired teacher named Sam fined into bankruptcy over a garden shed. A veteran couple who got eviction threats after refusing to repaint their garage door in approved tones. All older. All living alone. All pushed out. And each time someone left, the home was sold to a developer within weeks, always the same company. Northridge Properties. The same one where Mr. Donnelly's brother is a silent partner. I compiled everything. Dozens of documents. Email records. Legal threats. Even scanned checks from homeowners who voluntarily donated to HOA beautification projects to avoid violations. I was angry before. Now, I was furious. They weren't just trying to kick me out over a dog. They were running a quiet purge, cleansing the neighborhood of anyone inconvenient, anyone who didn't match their Stepford ideals. The final straw came in the form of a knock on my door. It was Karen from 2 doors down. Nervous. Eyes darting. She handed me an envelope. "I shouldn't be doing this," she whispered. "But you need to see it." Inside, copies of emails between HOA board members, including Donnelly. One of them read, "If we can get rid of the widow with the mutt, the whole block turns over clean. Northridge is ready to buy." That was it. I stared at Bo sleeping by the heater, his little chest rising and falling peacefully, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Resolve. They wanted a quiet sell-off. A whisper campaign. A disappearance. But I wasn't going quietly. They wanted war? I'd give them one. The day I decided to go public, I felt like a storm was brewing in my chest. I had all the evidence. Emails, photos, personal testimonies, even the threat from Karen. But the biggest weapon I had was the truth. The world needed to know what was happening behind the manicured lawns and picket fences. I contacted a local investigative journalist, Emma Clark, someone who'd covered corruption cases before. I wasn't sure if she'd bite, but when she saw the mountain of evidence I had, her eyes widened. "I think you found something big," she said, flipping through the files. "This isn't just about a dog. This is corporate greed. This is gentrification by force." We set up an interview. And the next day, Emma's camera crew was parked in front of my house. I wore my best blazer, not that it mattered much. It was a disguise for the woman I had to become for that day. The old, meek widow who just wanted her dog? She was gone. In her place was someone with a purpose. The interview aired on the evening news. Within hours, my phone buzzed nonstop with messages, calls, and notifications. Some were supportive. Some were downright cruel. People who had never even looked at me before now felt the need to comment on my life, on my dog. But none of that mattered anymore. The fallout was immediate. The HOA tried to call an emergency meeting to address the accusations, but it was clear they were scrambling. Emma's report had included a detailed breakdown of all the illegal activities, the fines levied for absurd reasons, and the developer ties. Northridge Properties, and by extension, Mr. Donnelly, was under scrutiny. The press picked up on the story. Neighbors who had kept their heads down started speaking out. They'd seen the bullying. They'd heard the rumors. Some of them even admitted to being pushed out under similar circumstances. As for me, I was suddenly no longer the outcast. I was the whistleblower, the underdog who had stood up for what was right. And I was not backing down. Then came the emails. The ones from neighbors I never thought would contact me. One said, "I always thought something was wrong with the way the HOA treated people like you. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. I'm with you now." Another, "My family was forced to move out because we couldn't afford the fines anymore. I'm glad you're exposing this." And then, there was Linda Alvarez, the woman who had disappeared years ago. She wrote, "I didn't have the strength to fight them back then, but I'll help however I can now. It's time someone took them down. I was building a coalition. A quiet rebellion. And it was growing fast." The phone calls, the interviews, the emails, all of it started to fade into the background. The storm had passed, but its impact lingered, reverberating through the neighborhood. Everything had changed. But in a way, I felt strangely at peace. It had been months since I exposed the HOA, and as time went on, the neighborhood slowly began to heal. People who had once avoided me now waved when they saw me out with Bo. The tension had lifted. And the best part? There was no more constant pressure to conform to some fake ideal of suburban perfection. We were all allowed to just be ourselves. I stood on my porch one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, with Bo curled up in my lap. His little head rested against my chest, and for the first time in a long time, I felt content. At peace with myself, at peace with my life. They had tried to break me. But all they had done was make me stronger. And then came the letter. It was thick, official looking, with a return address I didn't recognize. My hands shook slightly as I tore it open, not sure what to expect. My heart skipped a beat when I read the first line. "We, the residents of the Cedar Lane neighborhood, wish to formally apologize for our past behavior toward you and your dog, Bo." The letter went on to explain how the community had been duped by the HOA's tactics and how many neighbors regretted not speaking out sooner. They apologized for their silence and for allowing the HOA to bully me into isolation. At the end, it said, "We would like to extend an invitation for you to join our next community gathering, where we will discuss ways to rebuild a more inclusive, supportive neighborhood for everyone." I sat there, staring at the letter, feeling something stir inside me. It wasn't just an apology. It was an acknowledgement of everything I had fought for. The truth. The justice. The right to live without fear or control. The next weekend, I went to the community gathering. It wasn't some grand event. Just a small group of neighbors gathered in the park, chatting over lemonade and cookies. But for me, it was a small victory. The kind that mattered. I wasn't just the widow anymore. I wasn't just the one who had fought for her dog. I was part of something bigger now. A community that, despite its flaws, was learning to come together. As I walked home that evening, hand in hand with Bo, I smiled. The road had been long, filled with obstacles, lies, and challenges, but in the end, we had won. And I knew, no matter what came next, we were no longer alone. With that, I took a deep breath, the cool night air filling my lungs. I had my home, my dog, and my dignity back. And that, after everything, was all I really needed. This concludes the full story. Let me know if you'd like any revisions, or if you need help with anything else.